The KUDZUKIAN Network presents RIFFIN on Jazz with your host, Howard Robertson and Malvin Massey.
Sonny Rollins.
You got to improve, man. You got Coltrane and Ornette Coleman and these boys coming up. You better get your stuff together.
Mr. Miles Davis.
White people are funny. In America, they thought that I just woke up one morning and had the blues and started playing the trumpet. But it don't go like that, and you can't explain that to them.
Miles was able to make something that was wrong into something that was right.
Now they know. I'm not an accident.
RIFFIN on Jazz.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is RIFFIN on Jazz. That's your weekly visit with friends, talking about the music that we love.
That classic African-American art form called jazz.
I'm Malvin Massey.
And I'm Howard Robertson.
And we are here to talk about jazz.
Talk about jazz. Today our theme is on the corner of jazz and hip-hop, Malvin.
Yeah.
And listen, there's been a lot of controversy about hip-hop from jazz icon Wynton Marsalis. Yeah. And we are going to talk about how jazz and hip-hop intersect, not intercept each other. But we're going to start out with the innovator of jazz and hip-hop, who happens to be a friend of mine, with the first song that actually put them all together, and that would be
Brother Gill, Scott-Heron.
The only one. Check out The Revolution Will Not Be Televised.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nub. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on report from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still life of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he has been saving for just the proper occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and Hooterville Junction will no longer be so damn relevant, and women will not care if Dick finally got down with Jane on Search for Tomorrow, because black people will be in the street looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no highlights on the 11 o'clock news and no pictures of Harry armed women liberationists and Jackie Onassis blowing her nose. The theme song will not be written by Jim Webb or Francis Scott Keys, nor sung by Glenn Campbell, Tom Jones, Johnny Cash, Engelbert Humperdinck, or The Rare Earth. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with Coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
My man, Gill, Scott-Heron.
Yeah, that's pretty slick. I have to give him credit for that.
The revolution will not be televised. Talk a little bit about Gill. Gill Scott-Heron was born in Chicago, and mom was a former opera singer, and his daddy was a big soccer star in Jamaica. And so he was born in Chicago. His mom and his dad separated, and he moved down south. Guess where he moved?
Where?
Jackson, Tennessee.
Okay. Right
Jackson, Tennessee, to live with his grandmother. And when I met him at Lincoln University, he started asking me, he said, man, you from Memphis, right? I said, yeah. He said, so where'd you go? Like Hamilton or Melrose, Booker Washington or Carver or something. He started naming all the high schools
in town.
And we're 1,000 miles away from home, man. I'm going, how do you know? And he told me that he was basically raised by his grandmother in Jackson, Tennessee, and he came to Memphis all the time. And he attributes some of that to his musical influence and background.
Yeah, well, he certainly developed over the years as his skills were going on. I was reading this stuff about him, and Gill Scott-Heron, now we know him as for what he just did,
right?
For the dub poetry,
right.
I should say. But he also is considered by a lot of people to be the first rapper MC, and I didn't know that until we started doing this. And it also has a thing about him saying that he's one of the most important progenitors of rap music.
Right. And he put it over jazz. And that's what we want to really get in. This is called On the Corner of Jazz and Hip-Hop. And we really want to get into the similarities. Jazz and hip-hop have so much more in common than they do not. And for somebody, and we're going to talk about Wynton's comments and what he really meant to say. But coming up next, this is a selfish point, okay? This is a selfish point of privilege, if you will. We're going to play Gill Scott-Heron's In the Bottle. And we're going to play In the Bottle because it features my band. My band became my band in college became Gill Scott-Heron's band. And so the guys that you hear, particularly Danny Boyne on bass and Tony Adams on drums, were members of my band, and we played gigs with Gill when he first started. So check this out, In the Bottle. Check out the bass line.
You see that black boy over there running scared, his old man in a bottle. He done quit his 9 to 5, he drank full time, and now he's living in a bottle. See that black boy over there running scared, his old man got a problem, and it's a bad one. He ain't done pawned off damn near everything, his old woman waiting to bring for a bottle. And don't you think it's a crime when time after time after time, people in a bottle, there's people living in a bottle. Listen to me, see that sister, shop was fine, she's finally drinking wine in a bottle. She told me, oh man committed a crime, he's doing time, now she's hanging in a bottle. I seen her out there on the avenue all by herself, and sure need help from the bottle. I seen her, preacher man tried to help her out, she cussed him out and hit him in the head with the bottle. They turned to me, they asked me, Gill, now don't you think it's a crime? No way. And time after time after time, people in the bottle, there's people showing up in the bottle. Give me another good example. You see that jet in Erykah suit there, he done damn near blown his fool to the bottle. He was a doctor helping young girls along. If they wasn't too far gone to have problems. But the offenders of the dollar eagle said, what you doing, man, ain't legal. Now he's in the bottle. And now we watch him every day. He's trying to chase the prisoners away from the bottle. He turned to me, he said, "Get my hand now. Don't you think it's a crime? The way time after time, friends of mine in the bottle. There's people showing up in the bottle." Come on, hit it a lick one time, Stick. looking for me, you know where I'm bound to be in the bottle. Turn around, look around on any corner. If you see some brother looking like a goner, it's gonna be me. Sing the song. Na 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 na. Get a bottle of wine, $1.09, get a bottle of wine, $1.09, get a bottle of wine, a bottle. Yeah, all that I'm concerned about is a bottle. It can turn me inside out of a bottle. All I want is all I want is all I want is all I want. Since I'm living on the bottom of a bottle.
Gill Scott-Heron.
Yeah.
I want to tell everybody, Gill Scott-Heron went to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania for one main reason. His idol was Langston Hughes, and he went to Lincoln because that's where Langston went. Absolutely. Absolutely. Gill was a literary genius.
Obviously, with the poetry that he could come up with.
He was a great communicator.
Sure that,
I actually literally watched him stand down a riot, a student riot, talked everybody down. So, fantastic guy. He was the godfather of basically rap and hip hop, and the intersection of jazz with rap and hip hop. And that's what we're talking about
because
today.
He was on the verges of jazz. He was on the fringes of jazz and R&B.
Oh yeah,
and mix. He was always that mix.
Yeah, and his writing partner was a guy named Brian Jackson, and Brian Jackson was from New York, from Manhattan, and had studied and was a tremendous jazz pianist and flautist. So we're going to go from that to a lot of you probably heard that. There's a lot of controversy and potential and obvious conflict with what Wynton Marsalis has said. Things like he didn't like hip hop and rapper hip hop, and that it was more damaging racially than a Robert E. Lee statue.
Yeah. And you have to think of it in the context that they had just removed the Robert E. Lee statue down there in New Orleans.
And he helped with that. He helped with that.
Yeah, so that was on his mind.
A lot of people don't know that he and Mitch Landrieu played trumpet together in high school. Mm. And so he literally helped and advised Mitch Landrieu on taking those statues down.
Yeah.
So, but in the business that I'm in, Malvin, you learn that sweeping generalizations are not your friend, especially when you're somebody of note and that people listen to and who have a platform.
You have to be careful what you say.
You do. Yeah. And so, I really he had to respond to all of the backlash. He being Wynton Marsalis had to respond to all the backlash that he got in a 2,200 word Facebook post. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's
but it shows you how seriously passionate he was about all of that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
About talking back about it, to responding to it. Very passionate.
And I didn't disagree with everything that he said. And you didn't either.
Yeah.
And I know this. And we're going to talk about this. But first, we're going to get into a great interview with Robert Glasper, who is a young cat raised with hip hop, but he's a dynamic jazz pianist, and he's going to talk about this jazz and hip hop realm.
So the sample that Pete Rock grabbed from the Samach Jamal record, right here. Comes over, he just took like 2 bars. Right here. Whew. Right there. Whew. He took that and gave it to Nas.
The world is yours. The world is yours. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. Whose world is this?
Jazz is the mother or father of hip-hop music. They're both musics that were born out of oppression. They're both kind of like protest music, you know, going against the grain. And naturally, if you're a hip-hop producer that wants a lot of melodic stuff happening, you're probably going to go to jazz first.
Hey, yo, Ron, what up? It's music. I heard you was doing my joint, so beautiful. You and the guys just doing it over, and I really feel like, I really feel honored. I mean, it's a good thing that you picked that song, because I think it's important that women know how beautiful they actually are, despite whatever may be going on in the world these days, when it comes to women and how they feel about the way that they look, and how men think about them, and what they think men expect of them. I don't think that truly matters at the end of the day, because the only thing that really matters is how you see yourself. 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 How you see yourself.
Music from pianist Robert Glasper, tune called Beautiful, just after that interview with him. So Howard, Robert Glasper is a very talented young man out of Dallas, Texas.
Yes.
Why did you want to include him?
I wanted to include him because I think that he is the embodiment of the intersection of jazz and hip-hop. As everybody knows, we're talking about on the corner of jazz and hip-hop, and I think he pulls it all together. I think he gets it. He understands it. He loves hip-hop. He loves jazz. And I think he understands the dynamic between the two. So that's why I wanted to really get into, because, check it out. They were both products, jazz and hip-hop were both products of subcultures that became mainstream.
And besides, plus the fact that we've already said on this show several times that jazz was the father of all of this music that's come after it.
That's what he said. He called it the father and mother of hip-hop.
It's a father of everything that has happened since it was created.
Right.
So,
and then we don't, who among us likes everything? We don't like everything.
Yeah, we have to give credit to the idea of the creativity of the people and what they're doing.
There are going to be some aspects of jazz that you love and that you don't love so much, and certainly the same is true with hip-hop. Yeah. But speaking of things that we do love...
I like having a little sip every now and then.
You do?
Yeah. I like, and these things,
so tell me about the sip that you're having today.
Is this Cocoa Bond?
Cocoa Bond, yes.
Another California wine. Why are we drinking California wines?
Why not? What you got against domestic wines?
I don't have anything against them. We got some from out here.
From the looks of your glass, you kind of enjoy it.
I do.
Cocoa Bond, a red blend from California. That's what's on tap for tonight. Make sure you check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn app, or your favorite podcast provider. We're Riffin' on Jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network, and we'll be back with more Riffin'.
KUDZUKIAN's Riffin' on Jazz. Artivism.
Artivism features conversations with artists, creatives, and citizens working at the intersection of art and social activism. And I'm Linda Steele, your host. I'm a grant maker, change maker, social venture capitalist, and I invest in individuals and projects that use the arts as a vehicle for social change.
Artivism on the KUDZUKIAN Network. KUDZUKIAN! Riffin' on Jazz.
Welcome back to Riffin' on Jazz. One thing I didn't mention back before the break, Malvin.
Yeah.
Robert Glasper is renowned in another way. He is the winner of 2 Grammys nominated for an Emmy, and won an Oscar for his
Miles
work.
Davis.
His work on Miles Ahead, the Miles Davis biopic.
And that's a good way that's a good thing to say and to bring into the idea that this cat is a real musician, So if you want to disparage hip hop artists, you can't do that to a cat like this, because he does hip hop and he's a musician too.
And the other reason you don't disrespect anybody's art form. In my opinion, I think that and hip hop has given jazz deference and respects jazz and uses jazz and so I think that it had to be said in terms of that relative to Wynton, and I think he got it. I think he got it straight. I think he got it straightened out. But speaking of jazz, we're about to talk about a lady whose given name is Dana Owens.
Dana Elaine Owens.
Dana Elaine Owens, and who knew that Dana Elaine could sing like she sings? She can sing. Now, she started out as a hip-hop artist, as not just a hip-hop artist, but the queen
of the hip-hop artist. Yes, I know.
In case you guys don't know, you jazz purists don't know, we're talking about Queen Latifah. And we have pure evidence of her proficiency in jazz.
Not to mention the 3 CDs she's put out in jazz.
Yes. But this tune is a quintessential jazz cut. And you and I both know that the lyrics are built around a saxophone solo.
Yeah.
Okay, not something that was literally meant to be sung, although some great jazz artists have sung it. But
George Benson owns that song.
Oh yeah, this is true. I want y'all to check out the Queen, Latifah, on Moody's Mood for Love.
There I go, there I go, there I go. Pretty baby, you are the soul who snaps my control. Such a funny thing, but every time you're near me, I never can behave. You give me a smile and then I'm wrapped up in your magic. Music's all around me, crazy music, music that keeps calling me so very close to you. Turns me your slave. Come and do any little thing that you want to. Anything, baby, just let me get next to you. Am I insane or do I really see heaven in your eyes? Brightest stars that shine up above you in the clear blue skies. How I worry about you, just can't live my life without you, baby. Come here, don't have no fear. Oh, is there a wonder why I'm really feeling in the mood for love? I'm really feeling in the mood for love. So tell me why. Stop to think about this weather, my dear. This little dream might fade away. There I go, talking out of my head. Oh, pretty baby, won't you come and put our 2 hearts together? That would make me strong and brave. Oh, when we are one, I'm not afraid, I'm not afraid. If there's a cloud up above us, go on and let it rain. I'm sure our love together would endure a hurricane. Oh, baby, won't you please let me love you and get a release from all this awful misery. a good place to keep a loving state of mind. I'm so crazy, Daddy. I never knew what love was all about. Well, James Moody, you can come on in, man, and you can blow now if you want to with me.
There I go, there I go, there I go.
That's a great song, man. That's a really great song, and she did a good job with that.
You know what, though? But we cannot identify. We can identify a lot of stuff about Queen Latifah, but we can't identify where she got her jazz chops from, how long she's been singing jazz, how she started singing jazz and all of that. That was just a beautiful bonus.
Just came up in the middle of her career that she decided to put out 3 jazz CDs.
Ain't that something?
Yeah, and singing ballads too.
And you know, she didn't just start. She didn't just wake up one morning and say, "I'm gonna start singing jazz." No way, no way. You don't sing like that, and you don't sing those kinds of tunes.
You gotta have that in your heart. You gotta have heard that too. So you must have heard that as.
And you've been singing it. You've been singing it before.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Dana Owens, Queen Latifah, and that's going to transition us very, very smoothly to another young lady whose name is Erykah Abby Wright.
And you know, she's got chops that I didn't know she had either. Mm-hmm. She's a very skillful, talented musician and composer. And,
what's the other name?
Erykah Badu.
Erykah Badu from Dallas, Texas. And she is, and you know what? This is very, very cool. This is very, very cool because to me, Erykah Badu is the 21st century embodiment of Simone.
Nina Simone. Well, she's the same. She's a poet, an activist, and a performer.
Right. You know how she got the name Badu?
No. I wouldn't even venture a guess.
It's her favorite jazz scat. Nonsensical word that is a scat, Badu. She liked that, and it's also, I think it's got a meaning, Ghanaian meaning too. But Erykah Badu is, by everyone's knowledge and indication, a great hip hop artist.
Yeah.
But she also makes the connection between jazz and hip hop. Yeah. And that is definitely heard on this next tune that's coming up.
I mean, this will surprise me, Howard. You tricked me with this one.
I know it did. I know it did. And knowing how you love Latin, like I said before, your ears shot up like a German shepherd. Check this out. Erykah Badu, So Long. Erykah Badu.
Yeah, I love that track. Now, that was
nice
really,
track.
That was really nice.
So long. Listen, but a little bit background. Erykah Badu graduated from Booker T. Washington High School. Wonder if that was a black school. For the performing arts in Dallas. Went on to study theater at Grambling State University in HBCU. And
by the age of 14, she was freestyling local radio station with Roy Hargrove.
Well, yeah. And then left school, left Grambling to go make some money. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, make sure you check us out. Riffin' on Jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn app, or your favorite podcast provider. We will be right back. Don't you go anywhere. We got much, much more for you on the other side of this.
Best in Blue.
Are you all seeing that as a tie with the gang culture in Memphis?
I don't think that we can attribute all of that to gang violence or gang initiation.
Best in Blue on the KUDZUKIAN Network.
High Conversation.
Elliot Perry, otherwise known as Socks.
Man, thank you. How you guys doing?
Mr. Earl the Pearl Monroe.
Hey, thank you. Nice to be with you guys.
Glad to have Mr. Allen Houston.
Trying to stay warm up here in New York.
I hear you. Personality extraordinaire, Mr. Scoop Jackson.
I appreciate the encore.
Mr. Michael Ray Richardson.
What's up, man? Glad to be here, brother.
A 3-time NBA All-Star, the one, the only, Detlef Shrimp.
Howard, Larry, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show.
High Conversation. The KUDZUKIAN Network.
Riffin' on Jazz. On Jazz. On Jazz.
And welcome back. This is Riffin' on Jazz. And we're talking about hanging out on the corner of jazz and hip-hop. And it's it's an idea that Howard, we did one before. We did a show called Hip-Hop Sampled My Jazz.
Yes.
And the whole topic of that was that so many hip-hop artists use jazz and jazz artist music to back their songs. And that was fascinating to me, that was what time it was, that so many of them had done it. And this is, and I didn't get the concept at first until you really explained it out. But tell everybody exactly what we're talking about.
Well, what we're talking about is we're not necessarily just dealing with the sample of jazz in hip hop music, but we're talking about the true intersection of jazz and hip hop. And Robert Glasper so aptly put it, jazz is the mother and father of hip hop. And they both were subcultures that became mainstream. They were both, not necessarily, they're raw in a lot of ways. Jazz was both raw in a lot of ways. And hip hop is raw in a lot of ways. And they are both cultures. They transcend musical genres. They are both cultures. So
art forms,
yeah. So they have more similarities than dissimilarities. And
so we got this other artist now, this cat coming up, who I wasn't really that familiar with him as an organist, and didn't realize I had heard him
so many
times with cats like George Benson. He is known as one of those guys who was in the 70s. He had a cult following as an acid jazz musician. And a lot of people haven't heard that term, acid jazz, but heard it.
Did you like acid jazz?
It didn't really fit, that term didn't really fit. Because all it was contemporary jazz that just didn't follow any real format. It was good stuff. A lot of it was good music that I thought of.
Right.
And we played it on the station, but I never saw it as in that genre that they tried to give it. So,
But Ronnie Foster's been around, played with a whole lot of people.
Yeah, he's a real musician.
He co-wrote Lady with George Benson, and he was with played with Stanley Tarantine, and played with us, a whole list of folks. We've got a great cut coming up called Mystic Brew, and you're still riffing on jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network. great Ronnie Foster.
Good music.
Mystic Brew. And for those of you who have not heard, we're on the corner of jazz and hip hop. We're talking about the intersection of jazz with the hip hop genre. And we used Ronnie Foster's Mystic Brew because that was used and sampled by a tribe called Quest.
Yeah, and I had no clue about that either, you know, and they used the song.
Absolutely. Yeah. They were really prolific in using jazz cuts, and we're playing these cuts, and if you are a hip-hop fan, you can hear them and understand why and where they came from and what hip-hop song they were lifted for. And that brings us to another fantastic jazz keyboardist, Dr. Lonnie Smith, that we're going to use, and that was done
confused with Lonnie Liston Smith.
Not to be confused.
Let's mention that.
And it's easy to do for that confusion.
Matter of fact,
exist.
he said he started wearing a turban because of that.
Oh, to set himself apart.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, he started wearing something.
Dr. Lonnie Smith. We're gonna do this is actually an R&B. Rock and roll R&B classic.
Yeah.
Called Spinning Wheel. You remember who did it?
Was it she was in jail.
Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Back in the day. Spinning Wheel, this was also used and lifted by a tribe called Quest on their Electric Relaxation. We are on the corner of jazz and hip hop here on Riffin' on Jazz. Check this out.
stylist, Lonnie Smith, Dr. Lonnie Smith.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Lonnie Liston Smith. But the man is, he was born in New York.
Mm-hmm.
He was born into a family of a vocal group. His folks sang this and that. He was part of a group in 1950s that's called the Teen Kings. And guess who was in that group with him?
Who?
Grover Washington Jr.
Oh, really?
They were teenagers.
And the Teen Kings.
The Teen Kings, that was their group. And then he went on, he got introduced to George Benson, moved to New York City. George Benson needed an organ player. Grabbed Lonnie Liston Smith, Dr. Lonnie Smith.
See how easy it is?
Yeah.
And for that reason, he started wearing what?
Yeah, turban.
Yeah,
part of
to
what
set himself apart. Who would have thought that would, Lonnie Smith is not the most common name in the world.
Yeah. So how does it
Both
come out
of them
that
play
two organ
keyboards.
players?
Yeah.
Lonnie Smith.
Keyboard, yeah.
But the guy, a great history. And like I was saying, so why did we include him?
We included him because his music was used and lifted by Tribe Called Quest on some of their most popular
that's something else. So
hip hop songs.
This Tribe Called Quest, yeah, I've heard of them, and I wasn't really into the culture, but at the time they were really hot. I cannot believe they sampled almost exclusively jazz.
Yes.
Dave Coz is in there sampling. Stanley Turrentine, all these people.
Yes.
My goodness.
That's the intersection. That's what I'm talking about. That's the intersection of jazz and hip hop. And there's so much in common, and that's exactly why we're using this music. And that really is why we're on the corner of jazz and hip hop here on Riffin' on Jazz. And we appreciate your being with us. We've got a very, very interesting group. I asked our producer if they were considered a one-hit wonder, but he said they had some other stuff, but nothing. This was the first time out of the box, and it went straight to the top of the rap charts, rap and hip-hop charts. This is a trio. They're known as an American hip-hop trio, formed in Brooklyn, New York, composed of a guy from Seattle, a lady from Silver Springs, Maryland, and another guy from Philly.
That's college kids.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, they went to Howard University together, and they put out what is now a rap classic, and it is absolutely a jazz bass. And now we don't know if they lifted it or sampled it from somewhere. If they do, we can't find.
The liner notes say that they created the song and then attached the rap.
Right. But we're talking about Digable Planets, and the tune is Cool Like That. We're going out. We've been talking on the corner of jazz and hip hop. Malvin, as usual, my brother.
Always blessed.
And we appreciate you guys being with us again here on Riffin' on Jazz on the KUDZUKIAN Network. Tune in next week, same time, same place, and you're going to get the same great stuff. Y'all take care. We're out.
Riffin' on Jazz. Executive produced by KUDZUKIAN. Co-host by Howard Robertson and Malvin Massey Jr. Music curation by Howard and Malvin. And recorded at KUDZUKIAN Studios. Riffin' on Jazz. Part of the KUDZUKIAN Network.